Hello everyone, this is King Grats here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is part two of my MLB 2025 regular season predictions. This is going to be focusing on the National League, and we're going to look at the division standings and give who I think is going to finish at the top of each division and who exactly is going to make the playoffs. If you haven't watched my first part of my predictions video, which focuses on the American League, I would greatly appreciate if you go and watch that video. And once again, guys, this is all subjective. You don't have to agree with me, but uh, we'll see how the season plays out. I know I'm late. Bear with me here. Once again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for all your support. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you like more content like this one, and let's get into it. Okay, so starting off, we have the NL Central. This division is probably the most wide open out of all of them in the National League. So, starting off at the bottom, I've got the St. Louis Cardinals. I do think the Cardinals might just go into a rebuild this year. They definitely are trending in that direction. They really didn't do much to really help themselves out in the offseason. They're really tied in that whole situation with Nolan Arenado, who they couldn't trade in the offseason, and he actually vetoed a trade to Houston, if I'm correct. And this is a team that is probably going to be focusing more on some younger guys this season, and I'm not really expecting them to do much. I don't want to put them at the bottom, but at least for this last two seasons, they have not really looked like their former selves that we're kind of familiar with. So I'm just going to say that they finished at the bottom of the division. Number four, I've got the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh should be a better team by now. They've got at least a few younger guys. Paul Skeens is also going to be playing his first full season in the big leagues, and everybody's been talking about him since last season when he came up. But the Pirates really didn't do much to help themselves. I mean, they got some veteran guys, but really this team isn't seeing probably as much improvement as they should. I'm probably expecting them to have another losing season this year, but I'm not going to say they're going to be as bad as what they've had been in previous years. I want to say that they're going to be competitive, and I'm kind of hoping that the four teams in the NL Central right now are going to be a lot closer to each other. Um, I just don't really see the Pirates, however, making it near the playoffs again. Number three, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. I really do think this is the year that the Brewers really fall off. A lot of people got surprised last year with them winning the division, but they have really blown things out. They got rid of Willie Adames. Well, they essentially moved on from him. He went to San Francisco and got the bag. And then they traded guys like Devin Williams, for example, to the Yankees. And now they're just kind of a team that is, looking at younger guys and, some guys who could maybe fill in some holes here and there, but this is a team that most people will probably expect them to be anywhere around 500 or below and probably wouldn't make the playoffs. The National League is also a lot more competitive, and unlike the American League, which is a lot more of um, a vacuum when it comes to power. The National League is there's a lot of teams that are pretty much definitive locks to make the playoffs, and there's not many spots left. And for the Brewers, unfortunately, I think this is the year that they really start to fall off and probably enter a rebuild. Number two, I've got the Cincinnati Reds. I think Cincinnati is going to take advantage of the power vacuum that exists in the NL Central. And if the Brewers do fall off as I expect them to, then Cincinnati should very well finish at least second in this division. I don't think they're necessarily good enough to finish first. This is a very young team. They still got a lot to prove, and they are seeing a little bit of turnover at the management position with Terry Francona now coming in as their full-time manager, and they did get some veterans in free agency, and we'll see how that goes. But I still think that this is a part of a slow, incremental upward trajectory for Cincinnati here. So I'm going to keep my expectations to this standard. And then finishing at the top division, I've got the Cubs. I think Chicago definitely made some good improvements this offseason. Getting Kyle Tucker from Houston was definitely a big boost to their outfield. They still have most of their guys from last year. They moved on from Cody Bellinger, so they don't have to worry about that. They're also probably going to get some more reinforcements as time goes on. They definitely have a bit of a setback considering that they got swept by the Dodgers in Japan to open the year. So they're already kind of playing catch up. But hopefully they're not going to take too long. And if you look at them, they're probably the best team in the NL Central. At least most people would probably expect that they should be in the running for the division, and this is kind of my expectation for them right now. And I mean, considering how they've had just terrible luck finishing out the last two seasons, they really need to show people that they mean business right now, and winning the NL Central would be big. So moving on, we've got the NL West. This is probably the easiest division to predict because everyone kind of already expects the outcome, but I'm just going to go through it anyway. So at the bottom, we have the Rockies. So the Rockies are a team that people are going to expect that they're just going to finish at the bottom of the NL West anyway. These guys literally did nothing in the offseason outside of maybe getting a couple of fringe guys. And whoever they had that was at least sort of valuable last year, they've basically moved on from either by trade or by just letting them go in free agency, like Brendan Rodgers, for example, or trading Nolan Jones or Tyler Freeman from Cleveland. So the Rockies are destined to just be at the NL basement for a number of years now at this point. I just don't really know what kind of direction they're going. I'm pretty sure nobody knows what kind of direction they're going. Um, and yeah, that's all I'm really going to say for them. Probably going to be at least 100 losses for the year. At number four, I have the San Francisco Giants. It's really kind of sad how San Francisco has fallen off over the last couple of years, but they've really been kind of a year wonder with that incredible like 100 plus win season a couple of years ago. They're not really getting any younger. They did get some significant improvement in the offseason, getting like guys like Willie Adames, for example, but then there were other like questionable signings. They also lost Blake Snell to the Dodgers, which is definitely going to hurt them. And you can see other teams like the Padres, for example, who like are also kind of in a similar situation. But I just see San Francisco as kind of being the weaker team right now in California. That's going to obviously hurt, and that's really all I can say for them, honestly. Number three, I've got San Diego. I mean, the Padres did lose some guys. I mean, granted, I'm not sure how much they're going to lose there. Like losing Yerkes Profar, for example, to Atlanta might hurt them a little bit when it comes to depth. They are going to get like, full years of Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado. You got Michael King, of course, leading the starting rotation. But they did lose guys like Tanner Scott, for example, to the Dodgers. And once again, that's a interstate rival. That's going to be a massive blow to the team. Also, there's that whole ownership situation since the loss of Peter Seidler, and it's been really kind of questionable as to what direction the Padres are going to be going because they have sold at least some of their guys while also trying to contend during the season. So I just see themselves as kind of in the middle of the NL West right now. I just don't see them really good enough to obviously challenge for the top of the division for obvious reasons. Number two, I've got the Diamondbacks. I think Arizona's probably the closest team, other than the obvious ones, to win the NL West or at least contend for it. They made some pretty solid moves in the offseason. Getting Josh Naylor, for example, via trade. Getting Corbin Burns was ginormous, and now they've got a very good starting rotation over there. They still have a great combination of veterans and young guys on the team. Last year was definitely a down year considering their Cinderella run, or I guess you could say Cinderella run to the World Series back in 2023. Honestly, I do think the D-backs should probably be a playoff team this year, assuming that they don't suffer any major injuries. I mean, they did lose Jordan Montgomery to Tommy John, but other than that, they should be okay. But I just don't see them winning the division because obviously the winner of this division is going to be the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are just, at this point, they are the evil empire, as most people are now kind of putting them. They're literally just buying everything. I don't think anybody is going to spend whatever money they've now given up over the last couple years. They basically have what most people would say a perfect roster. I mean, like, there's literally nothing that can go wrong. They've got everything from guys who can be big name superstars to a very solid bench and reinforcements that will help them out. And they've probably filled up every hole that they even had. And they're coming off of a World Series win already. So they are certainly going to win the NL West. I'm not going to say they're going to break the all time wins record, but you're probably looking at somewhere close to 100 wins, maybe a little bit more than that. We'll have to see. All right, now moving on to the NL East. This one might be the toughest division to look at because there's a couple of good teams here. But at the bottom, I've got the Marlins. Miami looks to be going into another rebuild. Last year, they really fell off with over 100 losses again. And I would expect them to be probably somewhere around the same area. They further stripped down the team, trading guys like Jake Berger, for example. And they do have some young guys who might just come up for them, but honestly, this is a team that's probably going to be seeing, once again, a bunch of losses, and I'm not expecting much, honestly. Number four, I've got the Washington Nationals. The Nationals are still rebuilding. I was hoping that they could maybe take a step this year, but maybe it's just too early for them. And maybe they just kind of have to wait for one of the three teams above them in their division to basically fall off and either transition into a rebuild or mediocrity, I guess. But this is a team that definitely is looking exciting. The prospects that they've gotten over the years have started to work out, and it should be good. But this year, unfortunately, I just don't see them breaking out just yet. Probably next year, though. Number three, I got Philadelphia. I do think the Phillies are on a downturn ever since they made it to the World Series back in 2022. Things have just gotten progressively worse for them in the playoffs. And this is one of the oldest teams in the league, and they don't really have much support for the future. And, it's a ticking time bomb, as some people say. And also, they're also hitting a number of free agents. So you're probably going to be seeing some guys who are going to be trying to play good this year for their contracts. But I just kind of question the long term of this team. They did lose guys that were valuable for them in the offseason, like Jeff Hoffman, for example, and I'm not entirely sure how they're going to look this year. I want to be optimistic for the Phillies and probably will finish in the top three no matter what, but I'm not sure if they're even going to make the playoffs. Number two, I've got the New York Mets. The Mets definitely spent a lot of money this year. Getting Juan Soto is a big boost for that team, and they also retained Pete Alonso and filled in a couple of more spots in the bullpen, especially. So this should be definitely a good team. I don't know if they can finish. They win the division. It's kind of a toss-up. I just went with them second because I think that's probably most likely what's going to happen. Because eventually they're going to probably hit a slump, and then it's going to be tough for them to break through, right? I want to say though that they're a pretty good team. They should very well make the playoffs as well. I'm expecting Soto to probably have another good year this time in Queens. And last but not least, at the top of the division, I have the Atlanta Braves. I do think Atlanta should look good. Yes, they lost guys in free agency like Max Fried, for example, but they're getting back Ronald Acuna Jr. after another torn ACL. I'm gonna assume that he's gonna be just like he was the first time he came back from a torn ACL. And at the same time, you still got younger guys in there, and along with veterans, so you got, for example, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, for example, Michael Harris, Ozzy Albies, Marcelo Zuna. You got like a very good roster that's still very good, and they kind of fill things out around the edges, but honestly, internal improvement, a little bit of injury luck, and they should be pretty good. I want to say that the only reason why I have the Braves winning the NL East is really because of a toss-up. I'm not sure what the schedule looks like for them or the Mets, but it's one of these two teams that are probably going to win it. I just have Atlanta because maybe they're just going to get lucky in a couple more ball games than the Mets are. And really, that's all I have, guys. For the wild card teams, I'm going to say you're going to get New York and then Cincinnati. I'm going to say they also get a wild card spot coming out of the NL Central. And then I'll go with the Diamondbacks from the NL West. All right. So that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this one, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.